Things keep happening, whether it's your offseason or your playoffs. Hockey don't sleep. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We got Biggie and Rudo coming to you live on another day in the NHL playoffs, and for most teams, the NHL offseason. We'll get into the Avs' top priorities for this offseason, at least as they stand currently. They will no doubt change over the next month or two as we push towards the draft and then free agency. But before we get into all that, we wanted to take a look around the league, talk about some of the things going on. There's some real news. There's some sort of real news. I don't know. There's a lot of things to talk about, but let's start with Utah. The team name that has been spoiled about 60 times over the past couple months is official. They are officially the Utah Mammoth. Neat. I whatever, man. I don't know. I don't know if this is something you care about, E. I think the name is fine. I think they still desperately want to be Colorado's little brother, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it always takes me a little bit to get accustomed to a new name. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
we lived there with Vegas, then the Kraken. You know, anything new I don't like. I don't like, I'm not accustomed to, you know what I mean? So Mammoth for us in Colorado, it's easy, because of the Mammoth that's been around for years in lacrosse here in Colorado. So
Yep.
It's not a name that jumps at you weirdly, like, the Vegas Golden Knights, you know what I mean? Well, it wasn't the Las Vegas Golden. It was Vegas Golden Knight. It was very specific, So, I mean, it always takes a little bit of time, what I'm trying to say, and I don't know. I mean, is it pertinent, I guess, to the Utah? I was hoping for Yeti so we could have some fun with it, but
Yeah, well,
didn't win.
they said no to that. They got sued for that one, so
Yeah, I know.
what can you do? Anyway, not really the point. Also, like, is that logo not just ripping off
Looks
the
a little
Winnipeg Ice
mountainy to
logo?
me.
Like, go look at the Winnipeg Ice Yeti logo. I know that that's the Yeti, but do those not look like the same? Maybe it's just the color schemes. The color schemes are literally identical, but does that have a little bit of similarity? Just saying, okay? Maybe have a little creativity, Utah. That's all I'm saying, all right? That's all I'm saying on that one. I've never been a big jersey guy. Like, obviously, there are jerseys I like and dislike, but I'm not that deep into the jersey scene, so I don't really care that much. But is it... Let me ask you this. When you have things like this, when you're a team with no name for a year, does that actually affect the players at all? Like, or is this just superfluous nonsense to the actual hockey?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's like changing your uniform. It's like, okay, great, awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. As long as you have good ownership that takes care of you, that, you know what I mean, makes things right, and good fans. Obviously, fans are the key to any situation. So if you have those things, it's okay. The name is the name. I still felt they could have done it last year. Whatever. What do I know? You know what I mean? There was a lot thrown at them last year, but it is what it is.
Yep.
I thought their jerseys looked good this year. It doesn't seem like they're changing really their jersey. I think they're just slapping the logo on. That's what it looks like. So
I would assume so.
yeah. And then, it just whatever is what it is, right? And then it becomes normal and natural, and then, you never talk about the Phoenix Coyotes again, right? I'm just saying, over the years, it was the same thing. Nordiques, then they're like, not Nordiques, Avalanche, you know what I mean? And then, then all of a sudden it just goes away, right? So it becomes normal and natural, so.
They'll still be the Coyotes in my heart until Arizona gets a new team. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, they'll be the Coyotes as long as their core is still the Coyotes and they can't make the playoffs. Sorry.
That's right. It is what it is.
Just say, and like, hey, I get it. The Avs
Yeah.
inherited a really good team from the Nordiques. You take what you can get, but yeah, that Arizona Utah organization has struggled over the last decade or so. So
At some point, you got to turn the corner, right? You know what I mean? You
yep.
gotta. There's only so many things. We have picks and picks and picks and picks. I agree. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, but at some point, you gotta, as players, as management, as coaches, you got to make the jump. You got to get in,
Yeah, of
and you
course.
got to try to create some damage. It's not good to just always be all close. At some point, you got to get in. It's not that complicated, in my book.
All right. Yeah, look, that's a team that just hasn't. They've been close a number of times. I mean, if you want to count the bubble play, and I guess technically they were in the playoffs, but that was kind of
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just a team that doesn't quite have the right pieces to push for the playoffs, or they haven't had a breakout the way Montreal did this year, something like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is not a Utah podcast, so we can move on. There's actual hockey being played right now. Even if really this feels like the second round has started really slowly with the number of games being
Yeah.
played. We're into Wednesday and we're still getting game ones of some of these series. So,
So the Avs would have been game one tonight, right?
yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's game one in Winnipeg. So, yeah. Hmm.
But
So they would have had a little bit of
nonetheless,
a break.
a number of storylines have developed in the second round here. I don't know where. I guess we can start with Toronto, Florida, because their game 2 is today. They're the one series that actually kind of is underway. Obviously, Toronto wins game 1. They hold off a comeback. But you also have the very scary situation with Stellars the other game. Obviously, first of all, hope that guy's okay. Number one, hate to ever see anything like that. But I mean, I don't. Do we really need to have the player safety conversation again?
No. It just makes me laugh because, like you said, you feel bad for the player. I'm not a doctor. I only play one on our show here. Um, but I can tell you that the Sam Bennett um, uh, bump did not cause Stolars to go puke and, suffer a concussion, what it looks like. There's no way. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's no way. So,
Brains are
you,
weird,
you,
man.
you, yeah, I know, but it's like, guys, we were looking at everything in slow motion. You let it go quick, and it's like, come on, there's nothing there. Now, with the slap shot beforehand, probably. You know what I mean? Now, does that play into a playoff series and coaches use that? No. So, of course, Berube can't use that. And that's why Maurice is downplaying it. You know what I mean? Saying, come on, are you serious? Now, does that warrant a suspension? No, these things happen all game long. You know what I mean? Now, do you want to protect the goalie? Because this league is soft, as you know. I mean, when I say soft, a softer stance on penalties, and which I'm fine with. It's fine. Then call it penalty, interference, whatever it is. I mean, we've seen it, so many times when it's like, whatever, But to
I'm
say it's
less
anything
worried
more than
about
that,
that side of it. Contact happens in an NHL hockey game sometimes. These things happen.
yeah,
Um, whether it's the slap shot that caused the concussion followed up by the secondary
sure,
hit or whatever it is. Unfortunately, the sport of hockey is a physical one, and this type of stuff happens. What's concerning
yeah,
is how long a guy stayed in the game after experiencing severe concussion effects. And I get it. On an individual level, those hits to the head don't look all that dangerous, but isn't the whole job of a concussion spotter in this league to say, hey, we need to pull a guy because there's a potential for a
oh,
concussion here?
I totally agree with you. That's where I agree with you. What's where the miss was. You know what I mean? That's where the miss
Yeah.
was. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's in the
agree.
first period, and it keeps going. He wasn't feeling well in between periods, and I'm not blaming the medical staff. I'm not there. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to play that card, But it looks like they really missed something. He clearly wasn't feeling well, and that's why I'm saying and then it ends up being Bennett, kind of there's a little bit of a brush, and, then all of a sudden, for me, it was way before that, and that's why you want the safety of the player, obviously. But people saying that was suspension, like, guys, it's not even close to a suspension. Like, it's not even like it was never a thought. It doesn't matter if you like the Department of Player Safety or if you like George Barros or not. This was never going to be a suspension.
Yeah,
Like I
I
said,
agree.
you want to call that a penalty? Sure, whatever. I'm all there my son's a goalie. I mean, sure, protect the goalies. I'm all for that. And you knew it was going to happen last night, right? That was a smart play, but I don't remember who. And which goalie was it? He just he gets bumped and he throws himself. That was going to be a penalty with everything that was around the league and the media, right? Yeah, I mean, smart play. Was it Vegas or was it Edmonton? Was it Calvin that threw? I don't remember. Hey, when you're watching games all the time, you get
I know
confused
everything
with.
blurs together this time of year,
But
man.
there was a goalie interference call, which I was laughing because it was like, where's the guy gonna go? But then he really makes sure he gets hit. The guy gets hit, he knows it, and then he throws himself. Is it Calvin? I don't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. But that was smart because that was the whole topic around the league yesterday. So that's all you heard about. You turned on the TV, you got in your car, you got into a social media. It was all about that, right? So
Yep.
at the end of the day, you care about the player and make sure that he's doing well. And again, it doesn't sound like he's in the net. So hopefully, cross our fingers, that he's good and there's nothing more than just a bad episode there, and he'll be ready to go soon. So
That is the hope. So hopefully he's okay. That Toronto-Florida series, Toronto did win game 1, so that's one for them. Florida trying to pick up one on the road in game 2 tonight. We'll see. That game got a whole lot closer very quickly after Stolarz left the game. So we'll see. I don't know. The other games going on in the playoffs as well. We had 2 the other night. I don't know that I have a whole lot to say about Carolina Washington. That felt a whole lot like a typical Carolina Hurricanes game. I guess you finally slowed down the Washington Capitals scoring ability, but
yeah,
I mean, Carolina is who they are. Not that
that's how they play, right?
Fun, but it's not like anything out of the ordinary. I mean, they won in overtime. Cool. There's been a lot of good overtimes in these playoffs, but
Yeah,
I can only think of so many ways to describe Carolina Hurricanes hockey, I guess.
and they throw pucks, right? And then what Washington get? 15 shots. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
kind of
something.
weird. You know what I mean? Like, that's Carolina hockey. They didn't give up much. They swarm you. They throw pucks on net. Look at Slavin goal, throwing puck on net. I mean, that's just a CNI shot. Finds its way in the back of the net. Nothing more to it. But it's funny how, they'll be opportunistic about, when the big chances come. Yesterday was it Stankoven, you know what I mean, in the slot for their goal. And they're going to be tough to beat. I mean, we all know that. They're going to be tough to beat. And but Washington's going to have to throw more than 17 or 15 shots on net, to come back in the series and, kind of get one at home there and make it a 1-1 series before going to Carolina. So, again, it's not that exciting. It's still a little different than Montreal, Washington was. I felt that was pretty cool, pretty track meet-ish, you know what I mean? Where this is a little bit different. And, I mean, to say there's a lot of games. I like any playoff game, but I wouldn't say it's the most entertaining one.
Yeah, the
You know,
Carolina game is the one that you're chilling on the couch, lying down for. The other games of round 2 have been a bit more exciting so far, but is what it is. I mean, Carolina. I don't want to take anything away from them. They're still a really good hockey team.
No.
I picked them to beat Washington, so I do think they get through the series. I don't want to particularly keep up if all their games are going to look like that. 14 shots on goal total for Washington, by the way. Looked it up.
14, sorry. I said 15.
The playoff game, that's
I said
pretty
17,
rough,
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. With some OT.
Yeah, true. They had
Not
no
a
shots
lot.
on that overtime. It was only 3 minutes of overtime. But
Yeah.
anyway, we do got to take our first break here, pay a few bills. So let's jump over and make sure we're doing that as my parents' dogs are going crazy, but that's okay. All right. We are brought to you by the folks over at Mando. You know what stinks? The playoffs when you lose. You know what also stinks? Your butts, your balls, your grundles. Those types of things also stink. That's why you got to get with Mando. They have a bunch of great scents geared towards men, including things like Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. Make sure you go check them out. They have a bunch of different amazing products to keep you feeling clean and good all over the place. So go check out all of their stuff. Their starter pack comes with 4 items, including both tube and cream deodorant. So you can get yourself smelling right, but then you get to pick 2 other items as well. So go get with Mando today, pick out those items, go make yourself feel good, smell good, play good. I don't know if you guys are playing anything, but you know the saying. Did you know that 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor is a level of 5 out of 10? Don't be
All
5 out
right.
of 10 stinky. Get with Mando instead. Go get that starter pack. You can get new customers $5 off as a special offer for our listeners. That equates to over 40% off the starter pack when you use code DNVR at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Let them know we sent you over there with that DNVR code and get $5 off and free shipping on their starter pack. Once you're smelling good, make sure you're also being smart. Make sure you're getting with our new sponsor in First Bank. If you're looking for banking that plays at your pace, whether you're tailgating, grabbing halftime snacks, or catching the game from the couch, First Bank is in your corner. With their secure, easy-to-use mobile banking app, you can check your balance, split the tab for stadium nachos, and stay on top of your money anytime, anywhere. It's like having a financial MVP in your pocket. And here's the play that pays. You can earn $300 when you open a new First Bank checking account. Use it to score tickets to a Nuggets, Avs, or Rockies game, or whatever keeps your game day going strong. First Bank makes managing your money feel like a win. No games, just solid tools to help you stay in control right from your phone. Ready to take your banking game to the next level? Head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus. Certain conditions and restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. First Bank. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. So far, to me, the most interesting series of the second round. Again, the Dallas series hasn't started yet. That game 1 for Vegas and Edmonton. Vegas gets out to a 2-goal lead. Edmonton scores 4 unanswered goals to come back. We had our concerns about Aiden Hill. He didn't look great through that third period, certainly. I don't know. Am I regretting my pick of Vegas in this series right now? I might be.
Well, I mean, like Chad's talking about, like the Grundle rating is, can be
There's some stink factor in Edmonton or in Vegas right
yeah,
now.
yeah. There was a little bit of a stink factor in the net. I think, and again, that's what you're getting in Hayden Hill, right? We talked about that. Like I think that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get some 850 to 875 goaltending, and I think Calvin was in the 800s again. Yes, but Calvin is on a 5-game heater right now, Pickard. So, at the end of the day, they're finding ways to win. Calvin makes the save he's supposed to make. You know what I mean? And he's not letting in any softies, so to speak, right now. But I don't know. I think it's going to come down to the Aiden Hill, like we talked about. If he can't be any better than he was yesterday, then yeah, you're right. Your pick might be like the rating of the Mando of the smell rate. You know what I mean? Like the rating where it could be a little confusing. You know what I mean? Why you pick that? So, yeah. I mean, it's listen. There's a lot of firepower in Edmonton. We all know Vegas is well built. They won 2 years ago. And we all know the question mark for both teams is in the net. So it's in the net. And Chuck knows the Grundle is at least an 8 out of 10. That's kind of what I was saying. It's Unfortunately, you know, I don't know. Like Ragnar's saying, like there's so many good players for on their lines are so well balanced right now for Edmonton, and I think the back end is well balanced for Edmonton for Vegas, and I think, like I said, it's a wishy washy in the net, but I do believe like it's going to be one of those series that it's gonna go deep. It's gonna get deep, and it wouldn't surprise me if it goes seven. But who's gonna come out on top? Then I think a lot has to do with the goaltending.
I know I brought up Aiden Hill and like legitimate concerns. The guy gives up 3 goals in the third period. That's Avsy and blowing it levels. But Vegas had 7 shots on goal in the last 40 minutes of this game. Now, that's never good. But if you did that against a team like Carolina, you would at least understand. Edmonton isn't that good defensively. They're nowhere near that good defensively that you're putting up 17 shots in a game, which is probably where you got it from. Vegas only put 17 shots on goal in this game. And it's not like they were playing with the massive lead. Edmonton cut that lead to 1 in the first period. So you're playing with a 1-goal lead and you muster 7 shots in 40 minutes. There's some concerns there. Vegas can't play like that and expect to win.
No, and I'm sure they're going to look at the tape and we talk about adjustments all the time, and figure out like how, like you said, Ekholm's not there. That's their ace on the back end. There's no way we should have 7 shots on net the last couple of periods. There's no way that's good enough to go win a playoff game in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So yeah, I would expect Vegas to come out a little bit better. You're going to need Calvin to be a little bit on his toes there, because I do believe that again, Stone got 2 yesterday, and Eichel, he is a bona fide number 1 center, and but Dorofiev, God, I mess up those names all the time, the Russian names, but he wasn't playing, right? He was not. He didn't play yesterday, right? No, he didn't play.
Correct.
So you're talking about a 35 goal scorer, right? So at some point, you know what I mean? Like you need other guys to step up, the Barbashevs of the world, and to keep going what they've done in the playoffs over the last few years, and I would expect that from Vegas tomorrow. I don't expect 7 shots on net for the last 40 minutes for Vegas tomorrow, and I think that, and we'll see what Calvin's made of. You and I, we all like him here at Avalanche Nation. We like Calvin, great kid. Is he a number 1 goalie in the playoffs to go win the Stanley Cup? I don't know. I don't think so, but so I think you have to expose that if you're Vegas.
Yeah, of course. I think it's important to keep in mind it's only 1 game. I think we all expect all of these series. I think AJ might have picked 1 sweep in this round, but we're not expecting a lot of quick series here. We're expecting good battles, even if we believe one team is better than the other or what have you. There is a non-zero chance that the conference finals could include 3 Canadian teams. It's been, 32 years since the last time the Cup came to Canada?
93, right?
Yep. Is it time? Is it time for you guys to reclaim your Cup?
As you know, I mean, it's a big statement, right? For a city to get it, I mean, we all know that players are all Americans, Europeans, some Canadian, but I know we play that card because of, when is it going to go back to Canada? And, well, first of all, there's only 7 out of 32 from Canada, right? So odds are always slimmer than a U.S. city. That will be my defense there. But yeah, it was awesome. In 93, I remember that was my first or second year of pro. Anyway, and that's the last summer I went back home, to Montreal in the summers for the off season, and man, oh man, was it electric! Woof! It was electric in there. It was so fun and very exciting for those guys. And what a great city to win in. Tough city when you're losing, but what a city when you win. And Patty Waugh lived about 4 houses away from my dad's house, so I was back in my dad's house for the summer. And so yeah, Yeah, I did make a little trip at 3 or 4 in the morning there at the down the street there to go. Had to pick up something around the pool. It was a little emergency. I had to go fix something around the pool there. So
Uh,
yeah,
well, it's funny that you bring up Patty Wahi.
yep,
He has coached for 2 NHL teams, and he's won 2 NHL draft lotteries.
that's right. And that's the
It,
one with Nate and
yep, beat out Florida and Colorado for the one with Nate. Although he technically hadn't even coached a game then, had just recently been named part of the Avalanche organization. This one, he's been in New York for a little bit, but they end up winning that draft lottery. That draft lottery. Utah jumps up to 4th in the draft lottery as well. What's your opinion on the draft lottery in generally? I get it. It's a hard situation from a viewership standpoint. The NHL doesn't want teams to tank, so they have to give incentives for at least a chance for other teams to win first overall picks. I don't know. I've always been a person who thinks tanking is a normal part of the circle of life for a sports team, but I'm curious your thoughts on the draft lottery.
man, I don't know. And people say, "Oh, it's rigged," and like it's funny. Like this, I mean, there's nothing rigged, but oh, look, the governor of New York's mad because they took away the All-Star game, and then look that night they win the draft lottery, and it's all connected. And it's funny the conspiracy theories, but that's why it's fun. Do I agree with it? Do I? I mean, I would like to have it as you're 32nd, you get the first pick. That's the way I look at it. That's the way it used to be. You want to tank, so be it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're able to tank, and I don't know who wants to lose that much money and look so bad. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know. That's a decision you make, but I'm not a big fan of the lottery, and I thought that was weird. Same thing. Pittsburgh gets it. Was it the first one? That was Crosby, right? The lottery was the first
Yeah.
lottery was Crosby, right? Yeah.
If you're looking for
Same
one
thing.
that was rigged, it might be that. That wasn't the first lottery, but it was like the first one after they changed the rules
Yeah, whatever
on
it
how it
was,
worked.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and then um, I don't know. I wasn't watching it live. I mean, I had it in the background. I was just looking at. I was looking at the cards. I don't know what I was doing that night, but and then everybody was telling me that they were all confused, and it was confusing the way they did it, and I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I
Okay.
don't know if you watched it, but did you watch
I
it,
don't
or
know.
like I don't
No,
know.
I watched it on
It was
Twitter. Does
different.
that count?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did it in a different format than they usually do, and then people were confused. And but it's funny how Islanders is like, what were they supposed to pick? They would jump down what the most they could go is 10 spots, right? That's the most you
Yeah,
can
10
jump,
is the
right?
most you can move. Yeah. Um,
So there you go.
I mean, I think this is an interesting conversation because honestly, how often is the number one pick even end up being the best player in the draft? And the answer is sometimes, obviously when a Connor McDavid type talent comes along, he's the best player in his draft, no doubt. But you look at some of these other drafts, the Cale Makar draft, obviously, Makar at 4, Quinn Hughes came at 7 in his draft, arguably the best player of his draft so far.
Yeah.
And some of that is draftability of teams and whatever you want to talk about, but I'd say maybe the best player ends up being the first overall pick only like 50-ish% of the time when you look at NHL draft performances 5+ years later.
Especially
So
if there's no, like you said, bona fide guys like McDavid or even last year. I mean, I'm a big Macklin fan. You know that. I love Macklin.
yeah,
But, a lot of people were saying Demidov, you know what I mean? Like, could have been arguably, but because of his contract and he kind of slipped and, all that kind of stuff. Again,
yep,
time will tell. Macklin had a beautiful season. And again, I love him. I love the kid. I love the player. That's not what I'm saying. But, even next year, you're not really seeing a bona fide number one guy. You know what I mean? A lot of people are saying James Hagens. You know what I mean? Why?
yep.
Because he's from Long Island and it's a nice story and rated number one when the season
I think
started. And you know what I
Schaefer's
mean?
probably the guy, but we'll
I'm
see.
just saying, like, now it's more like Schaefer. But when the season started, it was
Yeah, you're
Hagens.
right.
Now
You're right.
that he wins the lottery, it's like, oh my God, you got to take Schaefer. It's like it's a little bit of that Seth Jones in Colorado at that
Yeah.
McKinnon draft, remember? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's very similar. Local kid, you got to take the local kid, and, then there's that pressure. And I'm not saying, first of all, the Islanders don't have a GM right now. So,
Yeah.
I
They got bigger problems.
there's no pressure there. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have a guy to make the pick. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wish it would just go like, if you're dead last, you're dead last. You got the first pick, and so be it. If you're tanking, what are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
I agree. I don't really have a problem with tanking. I get the league really didn't like what Edmonton was doing in the early 2010s, but incompetent organizations, you need help to fix them, and guys like Connor McDavid did ultimately fix that organization eventually. Okay, we do got to pay a few more bills, so let's make sure we jump in and do that first before we transition over to Avalanche talk a little bit here. Of course, we are brought to you by the folks over at Bet365. Make sure you go get with them if you're putting some bets down, whether that be on the NHL playoffs, maybe the NHL draft, or, go with basketball, go with baseball. They've got all the sports under the sun over at Bet365 for you to bet on whatever you want. And when you do sign up with them, make sure you use the DNVR365 code with a new account. Put $10 in, bet $5 on anything. You'll get $150 in bonus bets to play around with. Basically, free money to bet with. If you lose it, well, you only put $10 in, so not that big a deal. If you win it, now you've got real money. You turned your free money into real money. You can have fun with that. Do whatever you want when it comes to Bet365 and betting. Jump in with them. Make sure you use that DNVR365 code to let them know we sent you over there. And of course, when you do gamble with Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Then, if you want a little bit of extra beer money from Bet365, go pick yourself up some ice cold Coors Light. Jump in with Coors Light. Make sure you are checking the mountains on the bottle or the can to be nice and blue so it's ice cold and ready to drink. When you do pick one up, they're available all over the country in pretty much every liquor store if you want to go to one, whether you're sitting back and watching the NHL playoffs or the NBA playoffs, or you're just chilling out in the backyard for a nice spring summer day. Coors Light is the beer for every occasion, and you don't even have to go to any of those liquor stores I mentioned. You can stay right on your couch and head to CoorsLight.com/DNVR to get Coors Light delivered right to your front door thanks to Instacart. Go check them out there. Go get yourself something nice brewed right here in Colorado. Coors Light, again, it's good. Highly recommend. You see me drinking them on the wash-alongs all the time, so you can't go wrong with some Coors Light. Go check them out again at CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Get it delivered right to your front door thanks to Instacart. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Please drink responsibly. So third period, I see chat talking about the gold plan.
I have a question. Yes, please. Yes,
yeah.
please. I would love to hear your thoughts on the gold plan.
I don't like it. I think it encourages tanking just as much. It just encourages tanking earlier in the season, which is what I assume this is. I didn't actually look at it. Is the gold plan just the thing where...
Okay, I can explain it to you.
Once you eliminated, the team with the most points gets the first pick. That's what I assume it is.
So once you're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, you start to get points. And then the team with the most points at the end of the season gets the first pick.
Yeah. I don't think this solves anything. All this does is encourage even more aggressive tanking until you're eliminated. And then you start to play better once you're eliminated to try and get the first overall pick. Not that you're going to be a bad team either way, right? But I don't think it solves the internal problem of trying to prevent tanking. It makes a team more aggressively have to decide whether they want to tank or not at the start of the season. Does it make for more competitive hockey games down the stretch, even for teams that are eliminated? Sure. There's a little bit more reason for those games to be played for the bad teams and actually try and win them. I get that, but I don't think it fixes the problem you're trying to solve when it comes to that.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Then tank as fast as you can. You know what I mean? right? Be mathematically eliminated as fast as you can. Then you can put some points in the piggy bank. You know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, God, it'd be interesting to see if you could just try it 1 year and just to see what it would do. Does it really? I don't know.
I
I don't
just
mind it.
don't. I think people underestimate how much teams tank. Like, it happens. Edmonton and Buffalo in the McDavid year were absolutely tanking. But
Yeah.
I think people like to assign tanking to teams after the fact. The 2016-17 Avalanche were not tanking. They were not trying to be that bad. It just ended up that way.
Sometimes you just don't have the right mix, and then your players are just not ready for the NHL. They're not ready for those situations, And, so is it tanking, Edmonton? Well, yeah, because you're putting guys in situations where they're going to fail. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Sure.
Yeah, we're good. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so can you define tanking? Can you prove tanking? No, but man, are you serious? What are you doing? And then, because no one gets the call to put on an NHL jersey, go out there and stink. No one. Not a young kid. Like, not a chance. A kid, they have too much pride. Or maybe those are the only 10 games you'll ever play, you know what I mean, in your life. And it's like, you're going to go out there and, you're just not ready for it. You're just going to be a non-factor. And that's kind of why I'm saying that's kind of tanking. But it's not the kid's fault. He's not ready for it. And even a veteran player, he's not going to go make himself look bad so he can be out of a job, so.
In most years, Nashville this year, a great example, Big Dog.
Yes.
And in most, like, when you have a year where there's a Connor McDavid at the top of the draft, you will see more tanking. When there's a true, we all believe this is the next one type guy, you will see some tanking. But I think even when you look at some of the teams that ended up at the bottom this year, a San Jose or a Chicago, I don't think they were trying to be that bad. They knew they were going to be bad. That is not a team trying to be good and compete for the playoffs. But the first 2-3 months of the season, you're trying to give your team the best chance to win. And then you get to December and they say, all right, we suck. Let's tank and go for the first overall pick. With the golden plan, teams are going to be deciding in October, oh, we've lost the first 5 games of the season. Should we just tank? Is it any worse than the current system? Probably not. I'm down to see what it looks like in the PWHL. Cool that they're trying stuff. I don't know that it's significantly better than what we currently have across most of hockey.
It's worth a try somewhere, All good.
A decent jumping off point as we do kind of start moving into the Avalanche priorities of this offseason. One of the things that is not a priority right now is the NHL draft. The Avs have no picks in the top 100 of this NHL draft this season. So barring a trade where they pick up some picks, not a ton to talk about when it comes to actually drafting players. However, the trade floor, which I don't know how it's going to work with a non-centralized draft. Maybe it's a little bit different, but you've worked in the business. There's a lot of conversations that go on about trades around the draft. Yeah. Do you think how active will the Avs be in this offseason trade market, do you think?
Well, I think it all depends after a few more days here of letting the dust settle, right?
Sure.
They met with the media yesterday. Doesn't do anything to act on emotions, right? Still raw for everybody, still raw for fans, players, staff. So I think you got to wait a few more days and maybe another week or two, and then just kind of sit down and where is this going? How are we going to fix this? Like, what you just talked about, fix, meaning, okay, there's really no draft picks in the first 100. Do we want to get one? How do we go about that? I'm using names here. Is it Ross Colton? Is it? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, are you going to get a second-round pick for him? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's the guy. We can talk about this the next few weeks, I was just using an easy name.
We don't need to get into specifics right now, for sure.
No, that's what I'm saying. I signed asset. I just said example. Is it Josh? Is it? I don't know. you're going to get value for those guys. You know what I mean? Especially if they don't have a lot of years left on their contract. You know what I mean? So, again, it can go both ways. If you have a bad contract, then you're not going to get much for it. But sometimes, they're signed asset, a year left, whatever, 2 years. You get something. What does that do to your current roster? Does that give you too big of a hole? Or are you able to go and get somebody at $950 or $1 million, kind of like last year? Like,
Yep.
the Shillington, Godranson, who else? There's three of them.
My favorite. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, so they had two guys on, coming in, and
it was Shillington,
Dahan,
and Dahan. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, three guys coming in below.
I kind of counted Dahan as his own because he actually played real hockey for the Wolves. But
But you know what I mean? Like, guys are in league minimum. And does that help us? What does that do? So can we expand, can we let go one of our regular Ds? What do you do with Ryan Lindgren, right?
Yep.
He's a UFA. So there's a lot of things they're going to sit and figure out who's staying, who's not going. Brock Nelson, is he staying? Is he not staying? Right. That gives you, you got to go big fish hunting, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Big dog, whatever you want to call that. And then once you know what the situation's in those spots, then it leaves you what you have for the lower end decisions. All decisions is big, that's not what I'm saying, but some are bigger financial implications than others. And, you're going to figure out we'll get to your UFAs and your RFAs. And, I think Sam's the only RFA, right? Malinsky, that is.
Yep.
And then you figure it out. You make the puzzle, and how do we make our roster competitive? And we want to go win it all again. So that's just the way it is.
Let's work through it here internally for the Colorado Avalanche. Let's start there, because even if the business isn't necessarily done, you have to have a decent idea of what you're doing with your own players before you start looking outside the organization, at least in my opinion. And let's start with the AHL level in the Colorado Eagles. First of all, Eagles currently in the middle of their playoff run, up 2-1 in the second round against the San Jose Barracuda. It's a best-of-5 series in that round, so one more win for them would move them on. Eagles have been a really good team all year. They do rely fairly heavily on AHL veteran presence. Guys like the Magnas of the world. Matthew Phillips is having a great year for them as well. But having a good run, the Avs do have prospects down there. I don't know how much you've looked into this, E.
Yep.
When you're looking at that, when you're looking at where the Avs are cap-wise, which it's going to be a cap-strapped year next season, do you realistically see any graduations coming from the AHL? And look, I'll go first, because I think the reality is it's pretty grim down there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of guys that you're looking at genuinely graduating. McDonald's, we'll start with the goalie. Obviously, no expectations of goalie. You have Wedgwood and Blackwood in the NHL, so not even need to talk about that. Defense, McDonald, veteran presence. He can be your 10th D or whatever, sure. Amat, he played a game last year, but realistically probably a pretty deep depth option for your defense. Barron's injured all year. If he had a healthy year, we'd probably be having a conversation about him being a potential call-up type guy. But the fact that he played 0 hockey games this season makes that tough. So what it comes down to is the forward side. And this core is missing a couple of guys, probably because they played in the NHL this year. But realistically, I think the options you're looking at as call-ups are guys legitimately potentially fighting for roster spots next year as AHL forwards trying to graduate. Steinberg, probably at the bottom of the list of guys that have a chance, but has a chance. Obviously, he had an impact last year, but he still needs to serve that suspension. And while he brings that physicality, I'm not sure if the game is there at the NHL level. Then you have the two guys that are interesting to me in Ivan and Nikita Prishchapov. Ivan obviously played half the year in the NHL, so he's proven he can at least be serviceable at that level. his game really, really fell off in the second half this year. Even in the AHL, he did not produce at a great caliber. So I'm just not sure if the offense is there for him. And then Prishchapov, one of the better producing forwards that are actual legitimate prospects in the AHL for the Eagles, at least in the regular season, looked good in his short NHL stint. But for him, it kind of comes down to, what do the Avs do at center? If the Avs don't go out and fill that position, if Jack Drury is pushed up to 3C and you have an opening at 4C, maybe Prishchapov is a cheap option for an answer like that.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two guys that are, fairly young and up-and-comers. We like Ivan, you know that. Maybe a little bit too much to chew on at the start of the year last year, but great story, right? Guy comes in, no contract, earns a contract. I'm talking about last year. NHL contract, makes the roster, plays well. We were like, I thought he brought some jam. He was good. A little probably too much too soon. Goes back to the American League, and the American League is a good league. It's a tough league. It will eat you up. It does. And then you think that you go there and you're not getting the great ices, right? Because the Phillipses of the world, the Magnas of the world, those guys are getting it, right? And then all of a sudden your production's not there. And then you're like, oh, wow, what's going on? I'm in the American League. I'm supposed to score 25 goals. You know what I mean? Where, it didn't happen. But you can't quit. You can't stop thinking that you can be an NHLer. And I do believe those two guys believe that they can be. You don't have to look at their production. Obviously, the production for pressure, I hate saying his word, but I won't say it. P-Dog.
Call him Nikita.
P-Dog. The production wasn't there at the NHL level, obviously. It wasn't there at the AHL level, but, can he play the game systematically? Can he give you minutes where, you can help out? Yeah, absolutely, and that should be his goal. There's that Dufour kid that we got in that trade. You never know what, whatever.
Sure.
Who knows what they're going to do with him, whatever, because it's an unknown. They've never gotten their hands on him, so until now at the end of the year and the deadline. Yeah. But who knows? But as far as, the McDonald's and, like you said, those are their call-ups in my book. It was awesome. He had a great year. That's not the point. I've seen worse things happen. All of a sudden he's back next year and he plays a full year. I don't know. We'll see,
Yep.
But
you could throw some names out there. Obviously, they signed Bardakov already during the season, really. Taylor McCarr. Realistically, I think those guys are probably still at least an AHL year away. And then some of the other prospects, Gulyayev has a year left in Russia. Nabokov may well end up coming over, but again, the Avs NHL goaltending is set. So there's not a ton of options, but there are a few. If the Avs are looking to get a cheap young guy into the lineup to maybe save some cap space or something like that, it is.
It's pretty thin. It's slim pickings down there.
Thin.
Like, you can't be afraid of words, and it's thin. So can you sign? July 1st, they'll be active again. Like they've been the last few years, right away for the American League level, for your call-ups, where you can get on top of it, get some decent players that can help you pitch a few innings, Again, how are they going to, college free agency? It's kind of, we've seen it happen. They sign, Cooper Gay out of St. Thomas, right? Who knows how he's going to be? Like you said, you touched on Taylor. Who knows how Taylor's going to be? You got to get out there, have a real season, and figure it out. We'll see.
Look, it's a reality that the Avs are in the portion of their window, and I don't believe their window is closed like some people do. I believe they have multiple years left of this window being open if they navigate it correctly. But certainly, some of their draft misses are starting to hurt them now. And you look at a guy like Olausson, and I'm not saying Olausson can't go on to be a good NHL player. He may well still end up being one. But you're entering into what will be his fourth full year, 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. Now, fifth full year. This next season will be Olausson's fifth year inside the Avalanche organization. And it hasn't developed at the pace that they wanted, right? Again, he may still well develop into an NHL player, but the fact that he's not an NHL regular already for the Avalanche feels like a miss. Now, is that a scouting miss or a development miss? We're not the show for that, not the conversation we're going to have here. But you look at a number of guys like that, Olaus, Foudy, where it feels like at times they were close to making the NHL and it just hasn't come to fruition, makes the Avs' life harder.
And I would say, you know what? If it was that easy to make the nut, you're making it easy, sound easy. I'm saying, I always tell kids, if it's that easy to make the NHL, everybody would make it. It's not easy. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of luck, right place, right time, what you bring. A guy like Footy just hasn't brought it yet. You know what I mean? And it's not like he hasn't had opportunities. He did. And I'm a big believer, and you know me, you create your own opportunities. So, but somewhere, somehow, it hasn't been there. And then Brad's talking about Francis there in the chat. He's talking about Jack Hughes from LA. Yeah, that's a soft spot for me. I like that, Brad. I would love that for that to happen. Jackie boy, that would be great. That would be great. I love that. And again, you're right. It's not just Jack. I'm biased to Jack because I know him and he plays with Max. But guys like that are not getting signed. Jack was a second-round pick, and whether he was a second-round pick or not, who knows? I don't know. I'm not here to discuss that. He must have some hockey ability if you're drafted there, and all of a sudden your team doesn't sign you. So there's a few of those around the league every year. It's not just Jack. You know what I mean? And some guys still make a career, you know what I mean? And it's up to, that's pro scouting, that's college scouting, that's free agent scouting, that's knowing what's going on. And sometimes you have room to take guys like that, and then they become part of your roster in the American League, and you never look back, right? So who knows? But yeah, things like that. The Avalanche are going to have to look at all those types of things. Because of, by the way, this is water.
Let's graduate to the NHL here and look at what the Avs' main priorities are. I don't want to get too much into the free agent and trade market because the reality is over the next month or so, a bunch of different guys are going to get signed and things are going to change a lot. And some guys that you thought might be available won't be. But internally, obviously, the biggest hole to fill for the Avalanche is 2C. Now, is that bringing back Brock Nelson? Is that riding with Charlie Coyle? Or is that going outside of the organization? Today, I'm not sure which one it ends up being. But the 2C position continues to be the spot where the Avs need to figure it out.
Yeah, we're back to square one, right? Well, I mean, again, we're assuming, assuming that, I mean, you got to look at it in a realistic way. I mean, we'll talk about that these next few weeks. Do we really think this is going to happen? I can't see it, but then you're back to the same thing, and then you have to go and look. It's an important position. I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing. Do I think he's, coming back? I'd say maybe there's a 5%, 10% chance he's coming back. That's about it. Nelson does,
Yeah. It's hard to say exactly. What I can tell you is, as it sits currently, Colorado is projected to have a little bit more than $7 million in cap space at the current moment next season. Is that enough to bring in Brock? Maybe, but then the Avs have 5 other UFAs and an RFA to sign, or guys to sign to replace those guys. So it's going to be a tight fit. And if the Avs are looking to make a big move, whether that's re-signing Brock or getting someone of a similar value caliber, they're likely going to have to move some money out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was saying earlier, two things. You're using defenseman X that you let go at a certain amount of money because you're going to recoup a draft pick there. I'm using a second-round pick. I don't know. I'm making it simple. But then you're also gaining $4 or $5 million, whatever it is on the salary cap scale. You know what I mean? To fit what you're talking about there. So it's a puzzle. It's not easy, but that's why those guys are going to work hard at it, and they'll figure it out. They'll figure out what needs to be done.
And again, it's kind of too early to really have conversations about realistic 2C targets because guys are going to sign and with their teams, and the landscape is going to change probably until we get close to the NHL draft. Today, the list of options ranges from Sidney Crosby to no one. Like the entire list of centers in the league, the Avs should be interested in today until things get narrowed down and you have realistic options to target. Internally, to me, it feels like Brock Nelson or nothing. I know Chat's talking about it, and I've talked about it too. In the regular season, I'd be fine with Charlie Coyle as 2C, but long term, if you're serious about a playoff run, I don't know that you can use Coyle as a 2C when it gets down to it. But I know you love him, E. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, that's, again, would I've liked to see more from our 2C this year, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle in the playoffs. Yeah, I would have 3C. I would have liked to see more from those guys. Well, Charlie in Boston as a 2C didn't really work out either. You know what I mean? Because, I think Charlie's your perfect 3C. I really do.
I agree.
So that's, and I love him for what he is, and what he brings. And, but yeah, you got to figure out a 2C, if Nelson is not going to be a fit for you. So, they'll know here shortly. It doesn't take, you don't have to wait till July 1st to know all those things, and you'll know what you're going to try to do, and you'll know in the ballpark of what needs to be done and what you're going to need to get out to make it happen, if it's on the back end or if it's anywhere else on the wing, or is it Miles, is it Ross? Again, I'm using names. I'm not saying these are the guys that you're gonna, but you got to use money, right? You got to get money out. It's not, you can't just say Foodie, that doesn't count. You know what I mean? Like he's,
right. You have to move a significant amount of money out, and
yeah,
it's a tough spot for the Avs. I'm not going to lie to you. You have to move that money out. But when you look at their UFAs, when you look at their roster construction, right now they have 11 NHL forwards signed. So they need to fill another spot. And you're talking about potentially moving a forward out to save money. They only have 4 real NHL defensemen signed for next season, 5 if you want to count Middleton. They have to fill roster spots, and we're talking about moving roster guys off of the lineup. So yes, they do need to create space, but they're also going to need to create cost efficiency to fill in some of the holes that they already have, along with the holes that they're likely to make to free up space to make potentially bigger moves.
Yeah, and that's why it's a complicated puzzle. Last summer was the summer of Val and the summer of Gabe, right? You know what I mean? Because of uncertainties. This is just another challenge in summer, for those guys in the front office. And Chris, I think, alluded to it a couple days ago, or was it yesterday? Sorry. This is when the work starts. You know what I mean? The different kind of work. You're always working. It's 365, but this is where you turn your cap to what's next year's roster, and it starts today. You know what I mean? Because that's where we're at.
Job.
That's the job. That's how we do it. They have meetings for it. You plan for it, and you have the draft and free agency to help you with those things. And they're certainly going to put a valid plan together and keep figuring it out like they always do. And we'll figure.
Here's the good news for the Avs this offseason. You now know what's going on with Gabe Landeskog. There is not a $7 million question mark hanging over this organization's head. And whether that's, look, I'm like 99% sure Landy will be fine to start next season and you're good to go, but maybe the knee flares up or whatever, and then he's just done this offseason. Either way, you have a solid decision. So you know what you're doing with that money, instead of it kind of floating and the Avs having to wait till the deadline to see and figure things out. The Avs are good to go. They have to push forward, use the resources they have, and try to build the best team they can around a core that, look, I know Cale Makar didn't have a great playoffs, but you have to trust your guys. The dudes that are the core of this team, you have to remain full faith in. I certainly still have full faith in them. So that is what it is. We are wrapping up the show. We do got to get out of here for the day, but we appreciate everyone hanging out for another off day show. We'll be back for a few more days, probably talking more playoffs. I'd love to get into more details on the offseason stuff, but again, we're kind of just waiting to see how things play out. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.